Hi guys, today we are going to model this bottle, but we're going to use a derived master sketch method. I'll share this sketch with you. It's a sketch that this one is a layout sketch that captures everything. And you're going to see advantages of using a derived master sketch approach or the master model. The first thing we need is this is our master sketch on a different part studio alone. I'm not going to add anything else here. We're going to make sure that this master sketch for the spray is alone. Let's now create a new part studio and name it as a battery cap battery and cap. Okay, then we need to derive. We're going to derive this sketch into this. It is like you copy it is like copies this sketch into the battery cap studio, but the copy will have a link such that if this changes, the changes propagate to the battery and cap. Therefore, I'm going to use a derived very powerful feature using associative link insert paths. You can see here description derived. I'm going to use the current document. It is a master sketch. Under the master sketch, we have this master sketch. That is, if you go here, this master sketch is the one we want to drive. Okay, it is under the master sketch spray battery master sketch. Then say okay. You can see these two are the same, but this one is the parent, this is the child. But in case there's a change here, it gets propagated to this. But if I change here, if I add a hole here, it doesn't come to the master sketch. It doesn't go back. The first thing we need to do is now to create this battery, the bottom section. I'm going to use this body, these two sketches, and revolve to this axis like that, and rename it as a bottle. Okay, can press P to hide prints. Next, we need to shell this bottle. Can shell by 0.05. You have to remove this face like that. Okay. Next, let's model this cup. Again, go back to I want to select that section, and you have to revolve. You can see I'm using only one sketch. Have to use a new, and I want to rename this one as a cup like that. Okay, now we need to create a version. After this, now you can always create a version. Whenever you attain a milestone, create a version. You can give a description on what this version entails, then create. Let's now create a new part studio. Create a part studio. Okay. Then on this part studio, I want to drive this sketch, but I want to drive a version. If you go to the history here, you can see I want to drive version v1. This is the main. You can drive a main. For example, the battery on cap is using the main, but for the new part studio, I want to use v1 version. Therefore, I want now to derive, instead of now selecting this master sketch here, because if you select this one, it references the main. I want to use now a version graph and select v1. Now the v1 will now use the version v1 of the master sketch. You can see we have this symbol. This symbol represents that we have linked this Part Studio to a version v1 of the master sketch Part Studio, this one here. I'm using this version v1, this one, to link this to the Part Studio 1. Okay, I'm not using main, I'm using a version v1 here. You have to note that. Therefore, if I go back to the Part Studio, this one has, remember you also have a version on this one. Remember I created this version, properties, v1. You can give a small description, has battery and cap only. Apply, that's for the version v1. Cross, you can give a small description. Let me go back to part p1. This one we need now to model our head. Therefore, let me now give it a name of head, like that. Then our head will be comprised of this section, this section, this section. Then I need to revolve on this axis here, like that. Okay. Next, let me shift N to rename head. Let me first of all hide this one because I want to extrude this section, that section, to extrude this one by 0.05, 0.5 symmetric, add to this head, like that, to be one part. Okay, you can hide all these sketches if you don't want to see them. Next we need now to draft. Let me draft the head. You can see now it doesn't have a draft, and I want this one to be my neutral, plane. All these two faces will draft from this plane. Draft neutral plane to be this face to draft this and this, like that. If you go top again, you can see it has some draft with reference to this plane, to this face. Let me explain what we mean by draft. If I was to sketch a line from this plane here, let's see what would happen. If I was now to dimension from this to this, in other words, what we want to explain is this draft angle we have used here, 3. It means that this face will draft by 3 from this face. Therefore, if this angle, this face, and the angle between this face and this face is supposed to be now 90 plus 3 of the draft here. That was by the way. I'm using keyboard shortcuts a lot of time. Then we need to shell. I want to shell here. Share this by 0.1. I want to shell this, remove all this, like that. Okay, symmetric. Then we need now to fillet. Shift F to fillet. 0.05, that's fine. You can select this edge, this edge, this is, yeah, that's fine. Same case applies, this edge. There's something I want to explain here. Let me finalize this. I can select this face, no worries. This one, this here, I think that's fine. You see, whenever I press F to fit, this one doesn't go to the center. It goes, you see, not center, because we have this sketch that is still present. That's the reason why if you zoom in and press Shift 7, this one doesn't go to center because we have the sketch. Now, if you want, you can zoom out by Shift Z, zoom in by Shift Z, zoom out by Z. If you want to assign appearance to this one, you can always assign if need be. Yeah, that is if you want to assign. Let me now assign appearance to this. Let me now edit appearance here. Let's give it that. Okay. Next step is now I need now to create a mate connector somewhere here. Before I do that, I need a hole. The hole that will be used to mount the trigger, because this section here, this is the trigger. Now you need this hole here. You can see a small hole. Therefore, I can use this hole. Let me use ANSI clearance, this size, this and this, and select this hole there. You can now use, let me mirror this hole the other side. You can use feature to mirror a hole, mirror plane front. A hole is there, and you can hide. Then we need a mate connector that we are going to use. Remember, this trigger is between these two. Therefore, I need a mate connector between this hole and this hole. Therefore, you press Ctrl M, or you can just go here. You have a mate connector. This one is called explicit mate connector between entity origin. Whenever you use between entity, a very important point you have to note here is the mate connector is always between origin and this entity. Therefore, the origin is this, but now another entity is this. Therefore, the mate connector goes between the origin and the face you select. But the origin of this one, it lies between a line that is between these two. That is the origin of this hole. The center is where the origin is. You can always rename a mate connector if need arises. Okay. Then we need now to go to the assembly, create assembly here, like that. This, I want you to see the power of using a derived master sketch. Let me insert an assembly. In the current document, I need to insert this one, this point, this one, nozzle, and trigger, and I'm done. Okay, let me insert trigger. I want to insert, I didn't select here, trigger. I'm done. You can see everything is where it's supposed to be, because all these parts were modeled using one sketch, that is a master sketch. This is a trigger, this is the head. That's the reason why all these components, they position themselves where they're supposed to be. That is the power of using a master sketch. The assembly becomes easier. I have now to fix this. Then I need now to select these ones, group them. But now this one I have to mate. Let me mate this. Okay. Let me first format this using a revolute mate. I want to mate. Select this edge of a nozzle and this point here. That's fine. Then for this one, I want to use a mate connector that is existing. Use this mate connector for the head. This one has also its own mate connector, like that. Okay, now my assembly is complete. That's one of the advantage of using a master sketch. Something else, this one is, you can see the size of this. This one is, let's see the size here, is 3-inch diameter. If I go back to this one, the same, let me hide the sketch, 3-inch. If I go to the master sketch and edit, maybe I realize maybe this one is supposed to be maybe 4 inch. If I go back to bottle, the bottle now becomes 4-inch. You can see 4-inch. Same case happens to assembly, becomes a 4-inch. I'm using one master sketch to control everything. That is the power of Onshape. If I go back to the master sketch here, let me change another one. This is the value of the head. Let me put it to be 2. We'll see what happens. If you go back to the head, something happens. The head doesn't change. You see now this value from this point to this point is still 1.5. If you go here, let me go here, you can see it's still 1.5. But from the master sketch, this value here, from this point to this point, is supposed to be 2. You can see what is happening. This what is happening. You can see this icon here. It means that this sketch, the sketch we are using here, that we derived a version. The version does not change. You have to note this. The version of this, if I go back to this version here, this version V1, it does not change. Meaning, you can't edit. If I select from this point here to this point, it's still 1.5. It's still 1.5 here. But now the main is 2. The power of Onshape versioning. Okay? For us now to make sure that the head has the current version, you need not to go back and create a version V2 of our head. You have to create it and give some description here. Okay? After that, a minute, okay, it has refreshed. Yeah, I can see now I have this symbol. This means this a version change. Remember, we didn't change this. We just this one is a version that is called main. In our head, this symbol means that a new version exists. Okay, if you now just select this one here, you can now update this version. Update linked document. Okay, I want to update all. If you link a part to another versioned document or versioned part studio, you have to update. Okay, this also happens to the assembly. Now assembly is up to date because assembly does not reference a version. Okay, that's how you use master sketch in Onshape. Thank you for your time. Stay tuned for more videos.